Now at 6 and streaming on CrossroadsToday.com, Port Lavaca murder suspect Blake Downs says he acted in self-defense. Reporter Trent Whiting is live with the details.
Texas authorities are investigating the death of an infant who died in a hot car.
And a win for Governor Greg Abbott. The border barrier in the Rio Grande can stay for now. The Biden administration's response this evening.
Lots of heat and humidity. By tomorrow, the heat index will be near 110. Other than that, we'll be taking a look at that tropical depression headed towards Florida. Stay tuned. We'll have all that coming up in a moment.
And Victoria Generals, they must win tonight to keep their season alive. That's coming up.
You're watching 25 News now at 6. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Don Brubaker.
And I'm Karina Garcia.
Bay City Police want information on a 22-year-old man. Adam Sines is wanted for indecency with a child, sexual contact. Sines may be in the El Campo area. Sines is also sought by El Campo Police. If you have information, contact Bay City Police at 979-245-8500 or El Campo Police at 979-543-5311. You can remain anonymous. Today, the state rested its case in the Blake Downs murder trial. 19-year-old Cohen Berm was shot and killed in April of 2022.
It happened at a house in Port Lavaca on Holloman Road. Family members of Cohen attended the trial, which started Monday. 25 News Now reporter Trenton Whiting is following the trial and joins us live from Calhoun County with the latest.
The defense in the case of State versus Blake Downs returned to volley after the prosecution made their final arguments here in day 3. The defense claims that Cohen Berm's death was in self-defense. Downs' attorney centered the argument around an assault in 2019 where Berm beat a fellow high school student, which resulted in a misdemeanor and sent that student to the hospital. Images were shown depicting that student's injuries as they suffered bruises to their eyes and body as well as a concussion. The student's mother took the stand and claimed they still suffer from PTSD and even attempted to take their own life following the incident. The defense also showed 2 other videos of Berm fighting with classmates to imply a tendency of violence that could have led to his fatal encounter with Downs. Several police officers say it appeared there were no signs of struggle prior to the shooting. These arguments came following the prosecution resting their case in the morning session. The case will continue tomorrow at 9 a.m., where if convicted, Downs could face 5 to 99 years to life in prison. Reporting live from the Calhoun County Courthouse in Port Lavaca, Trenton Whiting, 25 News Now.
Trenton, thank you. The DPS Aircraft Operations Division intercepted a plane near Port Isabel Tuesday. DPS pilots noticed suspicious activity with a plane around Kingsville. The plane was intercepted before it landed near Port Isabel. On board, they discovered 8 migrants from Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. The case is under investigation. And now let's take a look at your forecast with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Bettis.
Well, thank you very much. Our heat and humidity are going to be holding tough for the next 7 days. In fact, that is what's keeping the storm away from us. This, of course, still has a 60% chance to develop into a tropical storm. It would become Debbie. Right now, the computer models tell me that in Florida, they're going to get 10 to 15 inches of rain as that system moves through. Not a major hurricane, but still unsettled weather. We'll have more on your local forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Mike, thank you. Wharton County deputies arrested a 61-year-old man Wednesday. Charles Washington of El Campo is charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He is in the Wharton County Jail in lieu of $50,000 bond. Texas police are investigating after an infant was forgotten in the back seat of a car and died Tuesday afternoon. The East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office says the parent left their home Tuesday morning to bring the 6-month-old child to daycare before work. Deputies say the parent continued on to work and did not realize until going to pick up the baby from the daycare in the evening that the child had been in the car all day. Autopsy is underway before weighing any possible charges. Tuesday, a full federal appeals court ruled the floating barrier in the Rio Grande can stay for now.
The buoy barrier installed by Governor Abbott's administration is meant to discourage migrant crossings from Mexico into Texas, but the court overturned a previous decision requiring Texas to remove the floating barrier. This series of concrete anchored buoys stretches roughly the length of 3 soccer fields and one of the busiest hotspots for illegal border crossings between the Texas border city of Eagle Pass and Piedras Negras. Meanwhile, the Biden administration argues Texas is violating federal law and risking relations in U.S. foreign policy. Now, this afternoon, Governor Greg Abbott released a statement saying, quote, "We fought to keep these barriers in the water, and with the Fifth Circuit's decision, that is exactly where they will remain. This fight is far from over," unquote.
Democrats are eagerly awaiting to see who Vice President Kamala Harris picks as her running mate.
A few contenders appear to be rising to the front of the pack as reports of her announcement could come as soon as next week.
Just over a week ago, Kamala Harris was President Joe Biden's running mate. Now she's at the top of the ticket and searching for her own VP. The Harris team is working at a rapid pace to research and test out the top candidates.
I think being mentioned is certainly an honor. My job is to make sure that, and I trust that Vice President Harris' judgment, she'll make the best choice she's going to. But one way or another, she is going to win in November.
Several of those on the list have been hitting the airwaves and the campaign trail, showing their support.
She is ready to not just be the standard bearer of our party, but to be the 47th president of the United States of America.
And taking on former President Donald Trump.
He called her a bum. If he wants to see a bum, he ought to look in the mirror.
I have 2 daughters and a granddaughter. I really worry about their rights if Donald Trump is elected again and J.D. Vance is the vice president.
The top contenders include Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear are also still in conversation. There will be a decision soon. A source familiar with the planning says that Harris and her running mate will travel to a series of battleground states next week. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Executions may resume in South Carolina after the state Supreme Court ruled Wednesday death by electrocution, firing squad, or lethal injection are all legal. Inmates sued the state after a 2021 law made the electric chair the primary method of execution. It also allows inmates to select firing squad because at the time, South Carolina couldn't get the drugs needed for lethal injections. The inmates argued death by firing squad and electric chair is cruel and unusual. Last year, the state was able to obtain drugs for lethal injection.
Boar's Head is recalling 7 million pounds of meat over a Listeria outbreak. The move expands last week's recall of more than 200,000 pounds of deli meat. So far, 34 people have gotten sick across 13 states in the outbreak, including 33 hospitalizations and 2 deaths. The expansion includes 71 products under the Boar's Head and Old Country brand names with sell-by dates ranging from July 29th through October 17th. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today. Hit the like button and click the notification bell. Then you can see Crossroads Today where?
On YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. Stay with us. Airstrikes follow after the death of an Hamas leader. Coming up on 25 News now at 6, how this impacts ceasefire talks.
Also ahead, a new study links processed red meat to dementia. Those details next.
tensions in the Middle East are rising after 2 assassinations in the past 48 hours.
There are reports of strikes in both Iran and Lebanon, placing ceasefire talks for the war in Gaza in limbo.
Overnight in Iran, the targeted killing of Hamas's political chief Ismail Haniyeh, a dramatic blow to the militant group. The future of ceasefire talks with Israel over Gaza now unclear, as Haniyeh was a key player. Iran blaming Israel and vowing to avenge the killing. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied it was behind the assassination. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu didn't mention Haniyeh's death in a speech Wednesday, but said Israel would, quote, settle the score with anyone who harms us. Former U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper calling the strike an embarrassment for Iran, who he says will have to respond.
Absolutely, very significant, arguably the most important attack against Iran and its proxies since the April strike in Damascus.
In response to that strike in April, Iran launched dozens of missiles and drones toward Israel in an hours-long attack. The majority were intercepted by Israel, with U.S. forces lending a hand. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin saying the U.S. would do so again. Haniyeh was the second leader of an Iran-backed group assassinated in a 24-hour period. On Tuesday, Israel killed Hezbollah's most senior military commander in Lebanon, Fuad Shakir, in a targeted strike. Israel says he was responsible for this rocket attack on a football pitch in Israeli-occupied Golan Heights that killed 12 young people. The killings raising fears that the conflict in Gaza could become a wider war.
This is very dangerous. The wave of war is coming rather than peace coming to the region.
In Washington, Brian Abel reporting.
A new study finds cutting your risk of dementia involves making one dietary change. People who replace an ounce of processed red meat a day with a daily serving of nuts drop their risk of dementia by 20%. Those who ate an ounce of processed red meat a day raised their risk by 14%. Processed red meats, including bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and deli meats, contain high levels of sodium and saturated fats. Eating high amounts has already been linked to cancer, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease.
Here's your viewer poll. Scan that QR code on your screen to vote. Here's the question. Now, if you knew that the risk of dementia is tied to eating red meat, would you stop eating red meat? Yes or no? The voters say 40% yes, 60% no. We thank you for voting. We want to hear your opinion. Come to crossroadstoday.com/vote to take part, and we will have an update on 25 News Now at 10.
Right about now, we're at 89 degrees. It feels much warmer than that. Our heat index peaked at 105 today. Tomorrow, we're going to be closer to 110, so it's going to be rather humid. 92 was our high, but with all the humidity, we're not even near our 96, which is the average temperature for this time of year. We'll be taking a look at your week forecast, also what's happening out with that tropical system in Florida. All that in just a moment. Our military hero of the month is Staff Sergeant Jim Pooley.
My dad came to Texas in '56
to work for Alcoa.
for Alcoa. He worked for Alcoa in Mobile.
Oh.
And then he went to Arkansas and they opened up a new refinery in Arkansas, and then he came here when the new refinery opened up.
Tell me about Point Comfort back then.
Point Comfort was a good little village, and I enjoyed it in Point Comfort. And graduated from Port Lavaca in '58. Then I went to Victoria College for a brief period of time. Then I decided to go on Uncle Sam.
Jim's first tour took him to Germany as the Cold War was getting even colder.
That's right. We had what they call the Berlin Crisis at that time.
Tell us about the crisis.
The Berlin Crisis is where Russia had tanks on both sides of the Autobahn going into Berlin and starving the people of rations. So we had one convoy went through there to Berlin. Then we airlifted, of course, a bunch of aides.
In 1965, Vietnam was just getting going. And in those early days, the mission was about helping support the South Vietnamese in their fight against the North Viet Cong.
A lot of maneuvers up and down Route 1 and 19, and I was also a demolition expert, so we had mines to clear on the roads and things of that nature.
Meanwhile, the people back in the United States were turning against the war in Vietnam, and protests began to break out all over the country.
Basically, I came back in Fort Lewis, Washington, and with a beret on my head, I got spit at and things of that nature. I witnessed flag being burned.
But on one trip back home, Jim found comfort. Yes, he found the love of his life.
And I had orders to, because I was still airborne, to go to Fort Campbell. And this is before we got married. Patricia, or Pat, I had one blind date with her before I went to Nam. And right as I went to Nam, I met her again, and we decided to write back and forth. So I proposed through the mail to her, so I call her my mail order bride. Of course, that's the paratrooper's badge. That's a combat infantry badge. That's an expert badge for M14. All the rest of them are national medals of Vietnam.
When Jim's service was over, he found his way back home, and he wound up at the Formosa plant in Point Comfort, where it all began.
We had, I think it was 7 docks at Formosa. Ship docks, barge docks. I had the jurisdiction of the railroad transportation, marine and inner traffic areas.
Jim and his family have been in the crossroads ever since, and the only problem is that no one lives forever.
Pat developed dementia. She's in the final stages of dementia now, and she's also at the Southbrook Nursing Home in Edna, and she cannot do nothing for herself anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And she's on the Hopkins program likewise, waiting for the good Lord to give her a call.
Right.
She is a real soldier in our family.
You give Pat a big hug for us?
I will do that.
And a big kiss?
I will do that.
If you know a military hero and want to tell us their story, go to crossroadstoday.com/military hero and let us know. I'm Maclovio Perez, 25 News Now. Well, good afternoon, everybody. A nice little sea breeze sort of helping out with the heat. And if you've got a nice breeze going, you're in good shape. It's when there is no breeze that it's going to be very hot and very humid. So we don't have any watches for heat advisories just yet, but you should know, and you should know what to do to get plenty of fluids, because the heat is going to be at about almost 110 heat index for the next couple days. All right. We take a look at the Pacific. This is Carlotta. You see right about there. But Carlotta is going to the west out into the Atlantic. No major problems. And then, of course, the big news is that we're still watching the east coast of the United States. Here's where the storm is now, basically over, well, very close to Puerto Rico. But in 2 days, it's going to be in the Bahamas. And there's going to be lots of warm water and lots of room for it to start expanding and growing. As a matter of fact, somewhere in this region is where it'll likely become a tropical depression this weekend, maybe even a tropical storm by Monday. At this point in time, it is not expected to be a major, category 1, 2, or 3 storm. Nonetheless, Florida is going to get about 10 to 15 inches of rain. Now, here's another view of it. You can see all the thunder shower activity right about there. It is definitely drifting to the west. It's over San Juan, Puerto Rico, and as it moves off into the South Atlantic, into the Bahamas, that's where it's going to strengthen. So this is going to be a very interesting deal because it is not on a direct path. It's kind of wobbling around, and then over Florida, it's going to go up and down. And because it may be there a little bit, a long period of time, that's why they're looking for so much rainfall along the Florida peninsula. So they're going to have to, I'm hoping they're paying attention and they're getting ready for that, because we should see a lot of stuff out of Florida for next week. Well, the dome is on top of us, and it is moving a little bit farther to the west. That is giving what will likely become Debbie a little bit of room. But as we get into the early part of next week, you can see how the dome actually expands out and pushes Debbie away from us. So yeah, it's heat and humidity, but it's keeping Debbie away from the Texas coast. Debbie will definitely go up this little path right here between these two, and that will make it move up into the northeast. So it's all east coast. Of course, we still have a lot of dust in the air. In fact, right here is where Debbie's having trouble with the dust, but it will be moving away from that. Of course, you saw what happened today. It was quite hazy out there, and so that's part of the activity. That's going to be here for about 2 days, and then we get a break, and then we'll probably get another surge of that as well. But that's, I don't know that it would affect you if you have bronchitis, but if you have a problem, well, just go on inside. That's probably what it is. So here we are looking at your forecast, looking for lots of sunshine, up 91 in Puerto Vaca, and then in the Cuero area, 93 with generally sunny skies, no real rain chance. And for the next 5 to 7 days, we stay in the mid-90s all the way through this week. And in fact, because Debbie is going to be in Florida, we are going to have hot and drier weather. That's your 7-day forecast, reminding everybody we do have a QR code. Love for you to scan that, put Crossroads Today on your phone. And we'll toss it back to Karina.
And now here is Max Williams with your sports.
Thanks, Karina. The return of the Houston Texans starts up tomorrow in the Hall of Fame game. That's coming up in sports. Stay with us. The Generals are back home tonight for Game 2 of the playoffs against the Brazos Valley Bombers. First pitch will be at 7:05 p.m. at Riverside. Last night's game was a pitching battle between Generals pitcher Ben Schoholtz and Bombers pitcher Bryson Walker, who threw 8 scoreless innings for the Bombers and 10 strikeouts. And in the bottom, it went to the extra innings. Harris Griffith, he put one into play and allowed a run to score and walked it off for the Bombers. So the Generals have to win tonight in order to keep their season alive. Wish them luck over there at Riverside. Now over to the high school ranks. The Texas Sports Writers Association, they selected some selections for 3A and 2A All-State baseball teams. Some of the names that are located in our district area around Victoria and other counties. We start with 3A with Jordan Wilson, and third team selection honorable mentions were pitcher Colby Roscart, and then from Goliad, first baseman Jacqueline Duran from Tidehaven, and then Connor Claxton, an outfielder from Tidehaven, got selections. Then in 2A All-State selections, it was Shiner that had 3 All-State selections, and pitcher Landon Polar, first baseman Bodie Warner, and shortstop Carson Schultz. And then also Ganado got 1 selection with second baseman Callan Havjowski. And again, congrats to all these men for being selected by the Texas Sports Writers Association. The Houston Astros, they lost last night to the Pittsburgh Pirates at Minute Maid Park. Start off in the 4th inning, the Pirates, they added some insurance runs, got on the board earlier from Connor Joe. Got an infield single and then put him up 2-0. Then Jared Trujillo, he extended the game to 3-0 for the Pirates. And the Astros, they just didn't have enough in the tank. And now they got to find a way to win tonight, not get swept. So Rammer Valdez is on the mound. First pitch is at 7:10 p.m. Now the Rangers got beat up today by the St. Louis Cardinals in St. Louis. And man, runs were going everywhere for the Cardinals. Alec Burleson in the 5th hit a 2-run single, making the score 5-0. And they would add more runs from Tommy Pham, who had a 2 RBI double. And again, 4 RBIs in total. And the Rangers, they got swept by the Cardinals, and they got a rebound. They got a day off tomorrow, and then they play the Boston Red Sox on Friday night. So see if they can rebound coming up. Now over to the gridiron. The Houston Texans, they're back, folks, here for the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio versus the Chicago Bears. The game will be telecasted on ESPN, ABC, and ESPN+. Head coach D'Amico Ryan said to the media earlier he's looking to see how the young guys compete and see if they can take some of the skills that the coaches have kind of taught them this season. We don't expect C.J. Stroud and expect maybe Davis Mills and Tim Boyle to play at quarterback tomorrow for the Texans. And also surprising news, Caleb Williams is not going to play tomorrow night for the Bears. So that is interesting to look at for the Bears for the future. And then also just some information about the Olympics. We look at it here. The medal count right now in the Olympics, you look at it, USA has 30 total medals, France has 26. But China has the most gold medals right now with 9. USA only has 5, but they do have 13 silver and 12 bronze. So Don and Karina, see if USA can maybe keep it going here for the future. Still a lot of days left, though, in the Olympics.
Alrighty, thank you, Max. Thank you for that update. We're going to be back in a moment with Mac with one more look at your weather.
And we have a combination of weather here. We have Saharan dust and South Texas heat.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're getting.
Tough combo.
So if you saw the haziness in the skies, that's the dust coming in all the way from the Saharan desert. It's now visiting us, and that heat is definitely going to be with us. Like I said, the heat index should get up to about 110 tomorrow, and that's when you just really just have to just take it easy during the late middle afternoon hours when you're working outdoors. Otherwise, no real changes for us this week. It's quiet for us, but it's not going to be quiet for Florida, where they're going to be looking at about 10 to 15 inches of rain coming in this weekend.
All right, Mac, thank you, and thanks for joining us.
We hope to see you back here tonight for 25 News Now at 10.